We are live. I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Heart to Heart with Bree. Tonight's topic is inner child healing. And my guest once again is Maxine Latimer Tremble. Maxine, please introduce yourself to the viewers.
Hey, you all. There's no big introduction, but I will say I'm Maxine Latimer Tremble. I'm in the mental health field, LMHC, and I have been in this field for a while, maybe 15 years, and I have been working with all ages. I've worked with the 0 to 6, the 6 to 16, the 16 to 25, the 25 to 80. And sometimes it can be rewarding and sometimes it can be stressful, but I love what I'm doing. So if you need to talk with me, you can get with me after the show.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, the last time we talked about emotional masking, which was very interesting. And tonight we'll be talking about inner child healing. Now, I can tell you that it was years ago. I found a book just by chance. Anyone that knows me, they know I do a lot of reading. And I remember I was kind of caught off guard by the title, Inner Child Healing. And I'm like, what the heck is it? Is an inner child? But as I read that book, I can tell you it brought a lot of healing to me and it gave me a whole new perspective and a whole new understanding on why I was stuck in certain areas of my life. And a lot of things were unresolved from childhood days.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that the viewers will listen with an open mind and, we'll jump right into it. So, first thing I'll ask you is what is the inner child healing concept? What is inner child healing?
You know, Brie, when you talk about the inner child, I can guess someone imagine a child coming from inside of them, that feeling, right? But you are right. So your inner child, right, is the part of you that holds your emotional feelings and your childhood memories and your playfulness. And it can be emotional, it can be traumatic, it can be any event that you have experienced throughout your childhood, and you keep it, you hold it right through, and it's there's no escape.
Yes,
It's like a trap inside of you. And sometimes you may act out, sometimes you may do things for that inner child to come out so you can get some sort of relief. Right.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Is it possible to connect with my inner child as an adult? As I read the book and it helped me to understand this whole inner child concept.
Yes, it
It,
is possible to connect with
yes.
your inner child.
Okay.
Yes, 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 yes. However, you
How do we go about this? How do we
how do
go
you go
about
about this? You
connecting?
have
Yes.
to be open to connect with your inner child. If you're not open, many of us, right, experience many trauma over the years, right? It can be a simple thing and it can be traumatic, right? Let me explain something. Now, many of us have grown into a strict environment, right?
Yes.
An environment where discipline was the number one, right? And some of those discipline were good for us because it trained us to be successful. It trained us for the world, right? And how
Yes.
we are going to react, right? But some of us have been traumatized by these disciplines, right? And the strictness of that we have experienced throughout our childhood. So many of us still hold on to these form of disciplines and trauma, and it causes us to to be emotionally triggered at times. As you grow, you still hold on to the pain and the suffering and everything that you have experienced, and it's so hard for you to let go.
Yes.
So you ask if you can disconnect yourself from your inner child. Yes, you can, but you have to be open to disconnect from your inner child. Like oh Lord, let me tell you, Bree. Many of us, we are grown, right? And you with your family, and you have a family gathering, and they say something, and you're triggered. It rehash something, some memories, and it opens Pandora's box, and then you are upset because it takes you back through your childhood of the exact thing that happened. Now, if you do not disconnect yourself from it, meaning that talk about it, find someone to talk about it, right? Or find a professional, a pastor, a good friend. It is mentioned that if you seek to work with kids or talk with kids, it can help you to disconnect from your childhood trauma, because it takes you back into that childhood memories, and it helps you to kind of release what is there, so you can get the help that is needed to move
Yes.
forward. Yes, yes.
Yes.
There are other ways that you can help to disconnect yourself.
Okay.
Journaling, right? Another way is you journal everything that has happened to you, or you write a letter to your childhood self, like, self, on this
Yes.
day several years ago, this is what happened. I am ready to forgive you, self. I'm ready to move on to the next level of my life. And if you start doing that, it will help. If you don't want to write spoken words, you go in front of the mirror, right? And do some spoken words to yourself, self affirmation as well. In the morning when you get up, you do some positive self affirmation
Yes.
to help you to release yourself as you do your daily activities. And sometimes, too, if you are that person, is to face it, accept it, face what is happening to you, accept what is happening to you, and it will help you to move on, Brie.
Yes, yes, because you know what? I think there are some things that we relive them over and over and over.
Yes.
And last week, Frank, Heather, and I we spoke about unresolved conflict.
Hmm.
And there was something I found on Facebook the other day saying that sometimes we don't listen with our ears, we listen from that trigger.
Hmm.
And it's like these triggers, sometimes we become very reactive. We don't
Right.
respond, we choose to react
Right.
because sometimes subconsciously where we're living, maybe things that were embarrassing, things that were very painful, or things that we honestly simply did not understand.
Mm.
So I think what you said I mean, makes sense. I think that sometimes we need to write things out or talk to someone about it to get it off our chest.
Right, right. It says listen to your inner child. You acknowledge it, meaning listening to it. It will help you to connect with your past and present,
Yes.
of what is happening. And not only that, you can trust yourself as well. Because one
Yes.
of the key thing is not trusting yourself, because
True.
of your pain and your suffering, your self-worth and your self-esteem is very low. So it's like, you cannot trust yourself to listen to yourself because you don't trust what is you're saying to yourself.
Do you think that many of us, because of our past mistakes, we hold ourselves to that old part of ourselves where we were maybe younger, maybe just foolish back then, in a totally different place? You know, it took me a long time to forgive myself for a lot of things and to face a lot of my mistakes because for a long time I didn't trust myself to make the major decisions. Now I do, but
Mhm.
it took a lot of work. But I think it makes such a difference when we're able to trust ourselves and trust our own judgment.
Right. It is part of maturity, and it's a place that you have to get to. And once you get to that place, you have growth, and you can reconnect with your past and your present emotions so that you can grow successfully, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely very freeing and it's definitely worth putting in the time and effort to get to that point. So
Mhm.
my next question is, what are signs that an individual is in need of inner child healing?
Wow, Bree, that's a great question. So signs that you really need, that you need inner child healing, or low, as I mentioned before, low self-esteem and low self-worth. I don't know about you, but many of us, likewise myself, I can put myself out there. I had very low self-esteem growing up. I didn't trust myself, and as a result, I was always into trouble. I always doing making mistakes, always doing
Yes,
silly things that do not connect with the things that are needed to be done. People pleasing, if you are always trying to please someone, always trying to seek validation and approval, of the things that you have done, that's something, that something is going on, with your inner child. Self-sabotaging behaviors such as procrastination, criticism. Sorry, let me do that again, Bree. Self-criticism. Help me out, Bree, because sometimes it
self-criticism,
criticism,
self-criticism. Your
sometimes the
tongue is
tongue
tied. That's
ties,
all. That's
trying to be
okay.
all that perfect, but it's okay,
That's
Oh,
fine.
yeah, it's all right. Yeah, sometimes we are our biggest critics, right?
Yes,
And we always criticize ourselves. I don't like how I look. I don't like the way I sound, and I don't sound good. Always finding some fault, right? And fear of success.
yes,
That's another thing. If you're afraid of success, difficulty expressing emotions. Many of us are, because of how we were grown, it is hard for us to express our emotions.
true.
You have to be strong at all times, and depends on what um, position as a child that you place, right? If you are the
Yes,
oldest child, you are supposed to be strong to take care of things, so you don't express your emotion. Fear of abandonment. Abandonment, fear that someone is going to leave you because you have experienced childhood rejection and abandonment, right? Mom left, daddy left, you are left with grandma, left with auntie, cousin, or you are left alone to take care of yourself. That can cause your inner child, especially from a young age,
yes,
15, 16, um, persistent emotional triggers. That's another thing, meaning reoccurring triggers, that happens to you. You drive somewhere, you smell the smell of someone that hurts you, you see something, your anxiety. Some of us are natural fear and anxiety. No one has to do you anything. I had a client and she mentioned to me, Miss Maxine, I'm afraid. I'm always afraid of something. No one has to do me anything. I am so afraid. Yes, that's another thing too. And difficulty, my last one is difficulty setting boundaries. If
yes,
you have difficulty setting boundaries, saying no because you want always to please someone and always to be that perfect person as well, you will have inner child syndromes. Yes.
yes, yes. Wow, that's a mouthful right there. I'd like to welcome your former teacher, Irene Roper. Thank you
Hey,
so much for
Miss
tuning in.
Roper,
Thank
how
you
are
so much.
you?
So, you know, all that you were saying, I could relate to like the abandonment issues that I know I dealt with. And I think it led to so many problems later on in life,
Mhm,
and that's a tough one to be in, because it's like the lack of coping skills really makes it difficult to navigate through. So as we progress, we'll definitely touch on that a little more. So
mhm.
my next question is, does an unhealed inner child lead to stagnant maturity? I'll tackle that part of the question first. There are a
Okay.
lot of adults who are very immature. They seem to be, behaving like teenagers.
Mhm.
Does that come from an inner child that needs to be healed?
Yes, sometimes too, you want to hold on to that inner child because it's a form of safety,
Yes,
protection, and safety, right? Everyone wants to feel safe, right?
yes,
Right. And wherever you feel safe, that's where you are going to stay. But if
yes,
you're unsafe, you're not going to stay. So yes, people who are wounded, right? Like children often experience persistent and chronic feelings from emptiness,
Yes.
helplessness, and hopelessness, right? And they might feel that they are existing as falls, right? Or they lack something. Something is happening, that void inside. And it all started from your childhood. Now you
Yes.
have ACEs. ACEs is childhood experiences that you have experienced in your childhood, that sometimes untreated experiences,
Yes.
unresolved experiences that you have been through, that it's hard to get rid of, and it travels with you into your adult. And as you go, as you live, these experience comes back and they haunt you.
Yes.
It's a trauma. I use that word because we're in Halloween, and you
Yes.
understand when something is haunting, meaning
Yes.
it's terrible. And
Yes.
sometimes you cannot get rid of it, and sometimes you will go to your grave with these feelings and emotions.
Yes. I
But
mean, that is so true.
yes, yes,
That
yes,
is that
yes,
is so true. Johnny said, "Hello, ladies. Just saying hi, and she will watch the replay later. She has a meeting right now. Thank you for that, Johnny's." And Irene Roper said she's doing well. I mean, I really appreciate Irene tuning in. She lost her mother recently, and
oh wow.
you know, you've been in my prayers for sure, Irene. Definitely have been. So the next question is, so if that individual is stuck at a particular age, when are they usually stuck at the age? Let's say, for instance, the person could have been a teenager
Mhm,
when the event occurred. Will
mhm.
they be stuck at that age of a teenager, or is it just at certain times or certain behaviors that may surface?
Certain times as certain behavior. Remember, I mentioned that it's the time when they are unsafe.
Yes,
If you feel like you're not safe, you are going to go into that emotion that makes you feel safe. And sometimes it's a childlike state. And I must say this, it's good sometimes when you're in that state, because
yes,
it helps to protect you. But it's the action, the gut action that comes out at times, because sometimes that state present an action that it's a freeze action, or a flight
yes.
fight or freeze or fawn situation that causes you to do things that you don't want to do.
Yes, yes. You know, what I'm learning now is that sometimes when people are very reactive and it seems like it's a little over the top, I'm starting to really believe that they're reliving a certain issue, reliving a time of pain, reliving a time of maybe embarrassment, but something that happened to them that was very painful, because you
Mhm,
just mentioned the need to feel safe.
mhm.
So is that what leads to like a lot of outbursts? You know,
Right,
when people, they just, it's like they don't know any other way to
right,
deal with the situation.
right,
Would,
right.
would you connect that inner child
Yes,
with a
right,
situation like that?
right. And sometimes, if when an individual may have an outburst, right, you
Yes,
don't know what is happening inside. And that particular time is a time where that person it fights, right?
yes,
That's when that person fights, because that's an emotion, that's a coping skill. It's not a positive coping skill, sometimes it's a negative coping skill, but that's the only way that person can escape that feeling and that
yes,
emotion at that particular time. Right,
yes,
yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
yes. See, one of the things I have learned, and it's not easy to do, but it's like when I'm in a situation that I would rather not be in, or it's a situation where I find myself feeling angry and overwhelmed.
Mhm,
It took a long time to get to that point of walking away,
mhm,
but it's like I would rather walk away because there are times in that moment we do and say things, that we
Mhm.
can't take
Take
back.
back.
You
Mhm.
know, things can happen in the workplace, it can
Mhm.
happen at church, it can happen anywhere.
Mhm.
So, it's not, you know, what do we do when we're in that moment of feeling overwhelmed and that outburst is about to take place?
So that's that moment you have to do some self evaluation. You have to stop and breathe or find out what is happening, what is the root of the behavior, right? Sometimes you're not in that feeling and that emotion to think about all that, Bree, but it's good to do a self evaluation at that time and to
Yes.
see how can I use positive coping skill to deal with myself. And if you are not able to do that, be the bigger person. Be the bigger person to go back when the time is right, or find when the time is right so you can correct that situation. Because people understand that there are times we react. I react at times,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because there are times where I cannot control my emotion and I react.
Yes.
As grown as we are, the inner child
Yes.
step
We're
and
human.
takes right, right. We are not perfect, but what do you do after the action? Okay, do
Yes.
you take responsibility and awareness of your action so that you can go back and correct that action so that you can be a better person inside as
I
well?
think that's key because I think that's why many of us stay stagnant because we don't take accountability for our actions. I think if I have made a mistake, that the right thing to do is go back. I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have done that. But to acknowledge it, because if it's not acknowledged, then the behavior becomes repetitive. I mean, what's
Mhm.
your opinion on that?
Right. Sometimes it's okay to say that act a fool because there's a term in psychology is act a fool. Sometimes you say, what I was doing wasn't right.
Yes.
I'm taking full responsibility. Don't think about what the person did,
Yes.
right? Just said what my action wasn't right at that particular time. I was not thinking. I was at my lowest point, and right now I would like to make it right with you and move forward or
Yes.
move on. Right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh, Irene, I'm so sorry that you were in the hospital last
Oh,
week. I'll definitely
I'm
have to
sorry
touch base
too.
with you sometime this week. I hope you're feeling much better. So, my next question is, as an adult, how do
Mhm.
I connect with my inner child? There are
Mm.
times when I may think of certain situations like when I'm in an adult situation
Mhm.
where I'm not feeling so great, it
Mhm.
takes me back
Mhm.
to a particular childhood situation where I
Mhm.
felt that same kind of feeling.
Mhm.
And, something I found myself doing, which I'm trying to stop doing it, but it's like I find myself reliving certain situations in my life,
Mhm.
and it's like I'm trying to redo them in my mind, or
Mm.
it's like, okay, this is how I wish it would have been, knowing that it will never be that way. But it's like, and I'll give you an example. I
Okay.
was born in England and I left England at the age of 10. And, it's like it plays through my mind. What would my life have been like if I had stayed in England? Now, trust me when I tell you, my mom did the right thing in taking us to Jamaica. Jamaica was a good experience. Coming to United States was a good experience. And I feel blessed that I've lived in 3 different countries. But
Mhm.
there's that part of me when I left England at the age of 10, I think I was in a phase where I was starting to feel more independent. I felt like I was about to start doing more things with my friends. And then, I just find myself looking back, wishing that I had the opportunity to find out. And I mean, you can't have it both ways. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
So remind me of the age that you left England.
I was
What year?
10.
Right. You were in that age where you were actually going through puberty, right?
Okay, yes.
Right, at the start of it, right? So
Yes.
that's the age where you want to learn more, when you want to, understand things more, understand yourself, your surrounding, and things that are happening. And that's the reason why you felt it more.
Yeah.
Because what if I had stayed? I was just getting to, connect with my friends, things started changing, and what would have happened. So
Yes.
that's the reason why you felt it more, because it was the start of puberty, and you changing your body, your mind, your will, your emotion started changing, and that's the reason why it took you in a period of regression.
Okay.
You regress at that particular time, right?
Okay, thank
Yes.
you for that explanation, and it makes perfect sense. I'd like to welcome my friend Joyce Lammy. Thank you so much for tuning in, Joyce. So,
You mentioned about connect with your how to connect your inner child with your adult self, right?
yes,
Yes. Now, I want to share with you, as I mentioned before, you have to acknowledge your inner child.
yes,
After acknowledge, I mean, let me tell you something. You don't have to go and tell anyone if you're not ready yet, but you can tell it to yourself. You can
yes,
stand in that mirror and you acknowledge that this is what happened and this is what I went through as a child, right? That's your inner that's yourself. And the next thing, self-compassion. Many
yes,
of us
that's
do
huge.
not, you have to have self-compassion, and self-discipline. You have to be disciplined as well. You have to recognize what is happening, exercise some, positivity within yourself and with others as well, to reflect on the memories, reflect on the childhood memories that you had. Spend time recalling. A lot of us do not like spending time recalling the positive and the negative memories in your childhood. You
Yes,
only, it's okay if you go back over the negative and understand the impact that it had on you and what is happening to you now. Um, as I mentioned, engage in playful activities. Sometimes, if you go to the park, and this is what is big, and you can get some relief. If you go to the park and you watch the children playing on the swings and so forth, and it's things make start coming back to you, and sooner or later you get a cry, you're crying in your heart, and the tears start falling out. That will give you some form of relief as well.
yes. It's a
Yes,
cleansing.
it's
I
a
do think it's a
cleansing.
cleansing. That's how
Right,
it feels to me. I'm learning
right,
to cry, to release these
right.
feelings, and to let it out.
And sometimes it's good to go around children.
Yes,
If you connect with children, it will help us as well. Engage in playful activities with your nieces, your kids, people around you that you can engage to. And remember, I mentioned write your inner child a letter. Write your inner child expressing love and support for your younger self.
yes,
Yes, right. Addressing all of those unresolved feelings and emotions and issues that you had in your childhood, repairing, visualizing how you would be if you were a parent. That is nice,
yes,
because it would take you back, because you will see if you would have done the same thing that happened to you, or you would have been a better parent as well. And seek professional help. If that
yes,
does not work, seek some professional help to talk with. Find a positive friend that you can talk to, someone that can listen to you without judging you as well, because sometimes people are judgmental and they judge you based on what happened to you, and not listening with empathy,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Now, sometimes, there are certain behaviors that when we don't break that cycle,
Mhm.
it continues with our children.
Right.
And, I remember when I was a child, my father didn't have a problem with punishing us. And,
Mhm.
I remember thinking to myself, when I have children, I'll never spank them. I'll never yell at my children. And I remember when I read my father's eulogy at his funeral, I said, I said I would never punish my children, but then I had children,
Mhm.
and it helped me to have a better understanding of him. It helped me to have more empathy for him as a parent,
Mhm.
because, it helped me to understand that there is no one perfect. But
Right.
I think when we have the dialogue with our parents, with our children, with our grandchildren, I
Mhm.
think it helps us all to have a better understanding of each other, and it creates an opportunity for connection and more
Right.
understanding. I mean, what's
Mhm.
your opinion on that?
You are right on the money with that, right? Because there are times in your life there is no connection, there is no understanding that period, and you are blaming the blame game of what could have happened and what if you could have done this, and you allow me to go through this. You didn't help, but as soon as you start parenting yourself and you start understanding, but you still, the initial stage of parenting, you're still
Yes.
blaming your parents because
Yes.
you could be a better parent as well. But when your children reach, or your child reaches a certain age of maturity, you know and you start connecting, being a grandparent, and you start having adult kids, then you have more connection
Yes.
because you are placed in that role. Do you know that? Yes,
Yeah.
you are placed, and they blame you for things as well. You
Yes.
blame your parents for things that your parents did not do or could have done better, or the what if moment. But do you know that our children, they do blame us
It's
for
true.
things
I've
that,
experienced it.
right,
And, you know, one of the things I'm learning is not to take things personally.
right.
It's hard not to do that, but I realize, like, I look back at myself at a particular age, and now that I am in my 60s, I can definitely have, more empathy and understanding towards my parents, because looking back, they did a great job. You
Mhm,
know, they
mhm,
did a great job, and I would be ungrateful to say otherwise,
mhm,
because I look back and I think about them being in their early 20s. They were both from the country in Jamaica, and to move to England to
mhm,
start life over. And back then, it wasn't the easiest thing to do.
mhm,
And, it's like when you think back with each generation, I think each generation of parents have tried to do things better. Now, is
mhm,
it always better? Not necessarily. We may be able to give our children more things, but
mhm.
are we still teaching them the values, the morals and values that each generation grew up and tried to pass on to the other? I mean, what's your opinion on that?
I think we have deviated from those morals and values because
Yes.
we felt like they were too strict, right? And
Yes.
this is like a different time, and we are into a different environment as well, different
Yes.
social environment where different rules and settings um, are now in that format. So we couldn't use some of the rules and guidelines that our parents use now. We have to adjust to the rules and guidelines now so that we can actually be better parents and better
Yes.
role models for our children, so that we can set boundaries as well. Have we done it correctly? Have we done it? No, I don't think we have. Maybe because we try to be lenient, we don't want to be as strict as our parent, and sometimes we give in to certain things, right? And our children find out how to manipulate us and how to get things. And as a result, I could have done better, and many of us could have done better, but we are doing great. Yeah.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
been, yes, yes.
Yes. Well, I think, because I think back to when we came to this country, my mom had three jobs. It's like that's a very difficult thing to do, to work three jobs. You
Mhm.
have a day job, you have a night job, then you have a weekend job. It's impossible to do everything perfectly. But it's like when you're thinking about survival, when you're thinking about providing, I think that a lot of, especially a lot of West Indian parents coming to this country, they worked a lot of hours to you know to survive and to give their children that opportunity to go to college and to give them a good life.
I'm smiling because I had 4 jobs. They used to
Wow.
call me
So
the
you can
Jamaican
relate.
lady. No, for real. They used to call me the Jamaican lady with 4 jobs because
Yes.
while I was a teacher, right, I used to go to different places and do counselings at different private school. Then I used to run over there and do something else. So I end up having 4 jobs just to make sure that I'm taking care of, the house just as your mom. So
Yeah.
sometimes you find yourself doing the same thing, even though we have, you know, more education than our
Yes.
parents, but to survive is as a way of surviving, to make
Yes.
sure our children, have the best, or not necessarily have the best, but our children are able to do and have the education that we would like them to have, so that they can be successful, so that they can be a better version of themselves.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I remember one day hearing my mom having a conversation with someone, and I will never forget it. It was about maybe 10 years ago. But I remember her saying to someone that she was responsible for 10 people. And
Mm,
I was an adult at this stage, but she was talking about my mom has 5 children, and at the time she had 5 grandchildren. So
mm,
she was literally taken on, feeling that she was responsible for all of us.
mhm,
And I just felt like that to me, I was convinced then. I mean, I always knew my mom loved me and loved all of us, but it was like to look at it that way, that I'm responsible for all of these people. I just thought that was so amazing. And like now, my children are adults, but I feel that level of responsibility towards my children too.
the role of the mom or the mother
Yes.
never
Yes.
ends. Never,
Never.
never, never, never,
Never.
never ends. So
It
that's it.
doesn't.
Right.
It
Yeah.
definitely doesn't. Well,
Yes.
let's talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a very real thing, and I'm telling you, a lot of people just don't. It's often associated with military personnel.
Hmm.
It's like these guys, they go to war and they come back and then they relive these events, and it's very traumatic for them. But
Hmm.
everyday ordinary people experience post-traumatic stress disorder
Hmm. Hmm.
also. Oh, my mom just tuned in. Hi mom, thanks for tuning in.
Hey,
So
mom.
yeah, so yes, please address post-traumatic stress disorder.
So, as you all know, PTSD is an anxiety disorder that triggered by a stressful event. So, any event, it can be a sexual encounter, you've been molested, or you have seen a robbery, or someone fighting, or any event. People associated this with veterans, but
Yeah.
it can be any event that actually triggered some form of stress in
Yes.
your life. Then it's going to become PTSD. You have to, one of the reasons why it becomes PTSD is untreated. You didn't take the time
Yes.
out to treat whatever had happened to you, so it became PTSD.
Yes.
Now, sometimes it's hard because you relive this event over and over. But if you are treated, whether by medication or psychotherapy, whatever, or psychoeducation, whatever ways that is given to you, then you can get help to manage this
Yes.
problem. Yes.
Yes. I remember when my son died, it was like it was a very traumatic experience.
Hmm.
And I remember my therapist helped me to see. She said, when you talk about him, it's like you're reliving
Right.
that old situation. So she helped me to get a grip of that. But it was a very real feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very overwhelming. And I am glad that she addressed it with me and helped me to get to the point where I can be functional, because it
Right.
would have been horrible, because it's been almost 10 years and it's still painful.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to talk about it without breaking down, and
Mm-hmm.
without that awful feeling of like I'm reliving such a painful event.
Yes, the more you talk about your situation, you're taking awareness, right? And then
Yes,
after a while, it's not a problem as bad
yes,
as it was before, because it has been like the stages. You're getting moving from one stage to the other, from the action stage to the
yes,
preparation stage to the stage where you're maintaining yourself, right? So that you can, live a healthy
yes.
lifestyle, right? Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
So that will lead to my next question. Why is it harmful to sweep trauma under the rug, pretending that it doesn't exist? And I think a lot of us are guilty of this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do we support those who are stuck in that place of not wanting to face the pain of the trauma?
So it's emotional suppression
Okay.
by trying to push things, your painful memories,
Yes.
or your painful emotion, and then you push it under the rug because you want to disconnect yourself from it.
Yes.
Once and you want to disconnect yourself from your feelings and what is making that feeling comes alive. And if you can do it, you're going to push the things or whatever it is under the rug and let it stay there. But
Yes.
it's good to talk about it. It's good to unmask yourself. It's good to remove it so you're aware of it. And you mentioned talking. You mentioned that you had to talk with someone. If you
Yes.
talk with it after a while, it's not a pain anymore, but it's something that you can live with, right?
Definitely.
But you have to find the right person to talk with. Because
I
if you
tell
talk
you
with
what,
a
therapy has been like my saving grace. And I'm not
yeah.
ashamed to say that I still go through therapy. I go through therapy now for a different reason, and it's just to keep my mind in tune, not to lose what I have able to work through. And it's
Hmm.
to keep me accountable to myself. It's like a gift to
Right.
myself. I
Right.
think it keeps me aware of my emotions and my feelings, and I'm better able to deal with things than before. And before I was very reactive, but
Right.
now I can process things a lot better. Now I may still, I there's still a lot of work to do, because there are times when, especially things are a bit emotional for me. I don't like to talk about it
Hmm.
with people unless I'm comfortable addressing things with my therapist.
Hmm.
Because what I have found is that people mean well, and I
Hmm.
get that. But
Hmm.
it's like I don't necessarily want to hear what I know is not going to work. And you
Hmm.
may be giving me advice that I've already tried. What you're saying is just not working. And
Hmm.
I found that with a professional is better able to help me navigate, you
Hmm.
know, through all of this, because it can be very difficult at times,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
like I think if we can learn to be more understanding of each other
Hmm.
and more accepting of each other, because I'm learning to trust the process.
Hmm.
And it's not easy. But, like there was a time when I was younger, I would have called probably 10 friends by now, call my mom, call my aunt, call my sisters. I don't do that anymore. I may process things, and I may process things for a few months until
Hmm.
I find a solution. Because
Right.
I found that just talking about it doesn't necessarily do anything. If
Right.
anything, it triggers more pain.
Pain. Yes.
So
Right.
Does that make sense to you, Maxine?
Sure, sure. And as a therapist myself, I need a therapist too. So actually, I have someone that I go and talk with. So a
Yes,
therapist do need a therapist. So I do understand. And we are trained to listen and talk. For example, if I have many times I work with substance abuse right now, right? People who are having substance abuse and mental health
yes,
issues, and they will come and they will sit and I will listen. You have to know the right time to talk, right? And then when you listen, you use motivational interviewing, right, to reframe, redirect, or use ask open-end questions at a particular time. And
yes,
then I will have them talking, talking, talking. And then I said to the person, tell me what happened at age, because while they're talking, there is a part of their life that is omitted, right? They
yes,
talk about, oh, they're excited because at 10, what happened at 10, and they skip from 10, and then they will go to 25, like 16. All right, tell me what happened between age 10 and 15.
yes,
And then the person start talking, and then the tears, and that's when they connect with their inner child, because
yes,
it's like whatever happened between that time that is pushed under the rug, right? It's a chance for them to talk about it and get some form of healing at a particular time.
which is
So as
so
that is,
important.
is so important, and it's good to listen, because
Very,
if
it's
you
the
don't do if
truth.
I do not do reflective listening, I can miss it as a counselor.
Yes,
So I can have the a person and just that one word, all I'm listening for is that one word or that key statement or phrase to have me get to the root of the problem so I can
yes,
help you. Sometimes my clients may not ready, but at another time I said, okay, tell me what happened. And then you can do certain skills, open chair. The open chair is a very good method that you have this person very good for inner child healing and trauma. Have a empty chair, and you have the person sits in the another chair in front of the empty chair or sideways, because that person may not want to face that person in the chair.
yes,
And that empty chair is something that had happened to them while that person is a child or an adult or something, and they talk to that person, get that anger, that frustration, the pain, the suffering, everything out. And I tell you, sometimes I would sit away from the person so that no distraction. And wow, it brings healing, Bree.
yes,
It's called the empty chair method. And
yes.
it's, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so
sometimes that is needed.
so do you think anger plays a major role in keeping us stuck? And I say that because I remember my therapist having me write letters.
Mhm,
And, you know, there was a lot of anger towards my dad. There was a lot of anger towards my ex husband. But it's like once I was able to release it, and I really had to take the time to think it through on like why I was so angry. And for a long time, I wanted to hold on to that anger because it's almost as if you think, well, if I'm angry, they will suffer for it when they're
mhm,
not. They moved on with their merry lives pretty much, and
mhm,
you're holding on to this anger. But as I learned to process it, I could understand why I was angry, and I felt I had every reason to be angry. But then learning to have compassion, because you know what? We've all had things happen to us in life.
mhm, mhm,
You know,
mhm.
people may not be intentionally cruel, not necessarily, I'm not telling anyone my father was cruel, but it's just that people make mistakes. We have all
Right.
made mistakes.
Mhm,
So, learning to have compassion, not just for myself, but for others. I may not particularly like some of these people, but I've learned to have compassion to them and where they could have been in their lives when certain things were experienced. And as I was able to release the anger, I didn't feel as depressed but I was able to let go of a lot of, it felt like it was like poison in my body. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Sure, it makes sense. And sometimes too, if you look back, it's a pattern, it's a
Yes,
cycle. His father, someone in his use that same sort of behavior, and then
yes,
uses it on his children, and then you have to break it, because if you don't break it, you are going to use it on your children as well.
yes,
And that's that anger. So being angry is a coping skill. It's a coping mechanism that you use to protect yourself, right? You use that to build a wall around you, and you feel safe within that wall. And then you will explode when it's time to explode. You will hold it when it's time to hold it. But if you understand that that's not the way, the positive way, the good way, so you have to let go. And once you start taking awareness and understanding about what is happening and how you can actually let go. Most of us, we have to let go the things, most the
yes,
things, let it go. How do you let it go? You have to process it. You got to
yes.
take the time out to relive it, forgive, right? You may not forget what happened,
Of
but
course
if you
not.
learn to forgive, forgive your parents, forgive your sisters, forgive your brothers, forgive your neighbors, it will help you alleviate some of the anger and the frustration that you have. And not only that, too, Bree, you don't have those anxiety, you don't have any health issues, headaches,
It's true.
stomach issues, because it comes on with your anger and your frustration. The stomach issues, the headaches, the migraines, some of the things, the illnesses that you are experiencing come from the anger, depression, being overwhelmed, suicidal ideation. So
Yes,
those are the things that comes with the anger and the frustration. So because you are able to let go, you are able to relieve yourself of the things that has been holding you back, so you
yes,
can laugh more, you can
yes,
think more, you can
yes.
do the things that you want to do, right,
I
so that you
definitely,
can be
I
successful.
definitely, I definitely agree with that. And the sad thing about anger, and I have to say this to the viewers, sometimes the very thing that you are craving, the very thing that you want, love, companionship, and all of that, you're pushing people away with the anger. You're not allowing people to see the true you, because if you can only express your emotions through anger, at the end of the day, a lot of people will not be willing to put up with that. And you'll be
Hmm.
alienating a lot of potential friendships
Hmm.
and people who genuinely care about. And I think it's ironic that sometimes we're pushing away the very thing that we're craving because of
Hmm.
anger. Do you agree with that?
Sure. It's a process too.
Yes,
It's a process, and you will fail at it the first time doing it, but keep on
definitely.
trying.
Yes,
Keep on trying, and it will see where you have gone wrong, what you have said to the person, and do some self evaluation, and take responsibilities for your action. If
yes,
you take responsibility for your action, then you are in a better place of dealing with your anger.
I agree.
Another thing, to start loving yourself.
Definitely.
If you start loving yourself, start loving who you are, then you will find yourself at a place where you're not so much angry anymore.
True.
So once you by doing that, go in the mirror every morning. I have a lot of mirrors inside my house because I had to get rid of my anger too. If
Yes,
you all know, Bree, growing up too, I had some inner child issues as well,
yes,
and I was so angry. I was angry with myself, and I had to start loving myself first. So my mirrors, I have a mirror at my front door, the entrance, because when I look come home and I look going out, I have to tell myself not to be like self actualized, like self loving at all times, but I have to tell myself, I love you, self, because
yes,
I'm not going out to wait on someone to tell me that they love me. Because if I don't get it, I'm going to be angry.
Yes.
I'm going to regress.
Yes.
And that's how the anger starts, because you have it's like an onion, right? And it's layers. So the more you go, the more you peel, the more you peel, you have stuff inside. But if you keep getting to the root of the problem, which oftentimes is yourself, so you have
Yes.
to start working on yourself instead of looking at the other person, or the issues or the situation that causes you to be angry.
Yes. Yes. So this question, I remember years ago reading about, oh, hi, Donna. Thank you so much for tuning in. That there are people that they may be stuck at a certain stage of their life where they may
Mhm.
be holding on to that hairdo that's like
Mhm.
maybe 20, 30 years old.
Mhm.
People who are still dressing like, a lot of hippies, they still had the long hair, still wearing the tie and dye, still
Mhm.
wearing the jeans.
Mhm.
And I remember a therapist saying, hi, Andrew, thank you for tuning in. I remember hearing a therapist say that this was the best part of their lives. They're stuck in that period where they thought this was the best time that they have had in the experienced in life.
Mhm.
So, and I remember I used to say, why does this person still dressing like they're in another decade? And
Mhm.
it's all a personal choice, but I realize, it's that feeling of being stuck, maybe,
Mhm.
or really not ready to embrace the possibilities of
Mhm.
the future. Is this making sense to you?
Mhm. 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 Yes, yes, it's called emotional stuck, right? And
Okay.
sometimes too, when you stuck in a period or in a time, it's because you are comfortable, or
Yes.
you like what was happening, and you are afraid to change sometimes, being afraid to move, because to move forward, or to do what the person is doing, you know. And sometimes it's okay. Is you,
Yes.
if you accept where you are, and you can deal with yourself and your emotions, right? And it's not making you angry, overwhelmed, frustrated. Okay, stay where you are because you are comfortable. But if
Yes.
you feel like it's making you sick, please, I'm saying to you, find ways of getting yourself unstuck, like, going places, like go outdoor door, look and see how what is suitable for you, what you can do, try new things. And when you try new things, you see what connects with you, what goes along with your flair, and so you
Yes.
can create your flair with whatever is happening to you at that particular time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I like that answer. I definitely like that answer. So I would encourage the viewers, and I'm hoping that they will share this video and take the time to listen to it again and again, because I do believe that we all we a healing. I went on a healing journey. That's why I started this podcast. And I knew that there were other people out there who had a need for healing too. I think the more we talk about these topics, the more that we face certain things, I think it allows us to become our best selves. I think it
Yes.
allows our witness to be effective. I
Yes.
think people will see our light. I don't think we have to beat people over the head with the
Mm-mm.
Bible, because I
No.
want people to see that I am trying to live a better life.
Mm-hmm,
I'm not
mm-hmm,
telling anyone that I'm perfect,
mm-mm,
but on this journey, I have found that I am more at peace with myself. I
mm-hmm,
can acknowledge certain things. And hi,
mm-hmm,
Aunt Sylvie. I just think that it has set me free. And I just
mm-hmm,
want, I want the viewers to know, especially the young men, and I'd like you to come back because I would definitely like to touch on what's going on with young men today who are
mm-hmm,
in so much emotional pain and they don't know how to express what they're feeling and they're stuck.
mm-hmm,
And I think acknowledging that we need healing, I believe that's the first step. So I'd
Right.
like to ask you, what are your closing thoughts for the night?
So healing comes from within, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
have to validate your feelings, right? And create a safe space for yourself. Wherever you don't have to go buy things or do anything extra. It
Would
can be
you
in your
repeat that?
car.
Would you repeat that part where you said you do not have to go buy
Buy
things? Because
things.
I think a lot of us, the excessive shopping, we're trying to fill a hole, fill that hole with unnecessary things.
Right. It can be in your car. It can be in your, I love my bathroom. So if you can do your safe space in your bathroom,
Yes,
that's a good way. Promote creative expressions. Many of us have this creative flair and this expression, create that for yourself. Mindfulness practices that you can do. You can do it in your car, simple breathing exercises, what you can see, what you can hear, what you can taste, educate yourself, educate your inner self, of things, read. I heard you mention you read up on the inner child as well.
yes,
If you're not a reader, when you go on social media, make sure you find the things that are educated so that you can be, you can be successful in your thinking and the
yeah,
way you communicate as well too. You seek professional as well, knowing that you are worthy. You are worthy despite what you have been through. You are right here for a particular purpose and reason.
yes,
You are right where you are at the right time and at the right place, right? You are not a mistake. You are
amen,
not a mistake. You have purpose, and you have to start validating yourself and understand this unprocessed trauma can negatively impact your ability to trust others and build healthy relationship. So if you have unhealthy trauma, you cannot build healthy relationship. It's going to
true.
be an hindrance and you are going to be stuck. When your trauma is untreated, it contributed to mental health and PTSD. So if you have untreated trauma, try and find someone, maybe your pastor, if you can trust him. Maybe it's the therapist professionals are really affordable. So if you
Yes,
can find one that you can work with, if you are working, you have EAP, use your EAP. You are paying for it, and you can get at least some free counseling until you're able to pay for some. So
yes,
make use of your EAP. That's the employee assistant program that you pay for. Yes, call that number so you can get free counseling as well. Um, go outside, do things. Therapy can help you process your trauma and develop new and better coping skills that you can use at home and at work. um, Self-care. Self-care
yes,
is important. You don't have to do your nails at all time, but just washing your hands. Let me tell you something. Get some salt, put some peppermint, eucalyptus on the salt, and use it and rub your hand. That's really soothing, and you get the scent and everything. If even sugar, you can use sugar.
yes,
Anything you can use. Get some sand. You don't have to pay for things. Put some eucalyptus in some water, some cinnamon in some water, and you boil it, and you have that sweet fragrances inside. That's mindfulness. Build a positive support system around you. Do not
yes,
push away your support system. They're there to help you find
yes,
positive support system. Go out. There are people like yourself that are suffering. Listen, there are support groups out there that you can get help from. Take the time out to build on yourself so that you can be successful and you live a healthy lifestyle for your children, your grandchildren, and you have created a positive pattern, and you have stopped the cycle.
amen.
You have broken that cycle. Yes,
Amen. I
Bree.
think it's
Yes.
good that, like you said, the support system. I'm fortunate where I have my mom. I can reach out to her. And I can reach out to my Aunt Sylvie. There are a few people in my life that, I can reach out to.
Right.
And I think it makes all the difference. I think that it's, you know what? I do think that healing is a choice, and you
Hmm.
have to decide that you want
You
to
want
heal.
it.
Do you
Hmm.
want to be stuck in that negative, dark, miserable place, or do you want to set yourself free? It's a choice.
And Brie, I want to share this. I know many of you have been through so much, and it's painful. It's easier said than done. But if you don't take the time out to get the necessary help, it's going to be harder, and it's going to be difficult for you to deal with yourself.
It's
And I
true.
want you to have help. I want you to seek help so you can break this pattern.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so,
Maxine.
Bree.
This was
Thank
a
you so
very
much.
interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward
Yes.
to having you back.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
so much.
welcome. You're
Yes,
welcome.
yes.
And I'd like to wish the viewers a wonderful week. God bless.